So this happened. So we're going to put a drop of super glue on here and try to grab the piece that's in there. See if it'll work. For a minute? No, I mean put it on there, but hold it for a minute. Because it's going to push down in there. Okay, you got 19 seconds so far. Alright, it's going. Oh, it pulled it some, didn't it?
I don't think so.
Did it or didn't it? What does that do?
This is activator. Just make it harden immediately.
Why would you want to do that in the tube? Oh, as soon as it hits it. Because it was still liquid.
Keeps just pushing further and further back.
Yeah, I pushed it down in there farther than it was. Okay, I'm just going to remove that bolt, take the dipstick out, and then just push it out the end.
We'll see what happens.
Try it. Oh, that looks good, but is it activating?
Crazy glue, you dirty rat. Strong enough to hold this man suspended in midair. Right, Ma? Roger, Ma.
So we removed that 13 millimeter right there. And now we're just going to pull up on the dipstick tube, pull it out. And now we don't have to drill it out and all that stuff. Push on that. All right, it's out. Now we can replace this tip. So this kit was $11. Gives you the drill bit to drill through the old dipstick in order to put this piece of metal on there. Putting the dipstick tube back in. There it is. Now we're going to put the 13 millimeter nut back on it. Wish me luck. Okay, that's a pretty precarious little way of doing that, but you can see I got it started. Drill, we got drills.
No, it should be the same hole.
Now it says you got to put it in the right way.
Yeah, this way it lines up, this way it does not.
Yeah, it says you got to put it in a certain way. Okay, then flip it.
Yeah, you can see that.
It goes in deeper, right?
Yep.
So then you got to drill out just the piece of metal, right? Oh, you're putting the screw in already.
I don't believe so. It looked like the same
It
size.
said you had to drill the piece of metal out. See? It said it's ever so slightly bigger. That screw is. So they give you a drill. That's what I asked you if you were drilling it out. Yep, it's ever slightly bigger. But it is keyed. It goes in a certain way. You just get the drill and just keep doing that. Both sides. What'd you do with the little screw?
It's still in there. Put it in.
Oh. Gotcha. So this is threaded on both sides. But then apparently this has to be big enough to receive it. So when you get the drill? Looks like it's turning backwards in this thing. Clean all that metal filing off of there. Cool. Oh, because it's got to hit the other side.
As long as it goes in past this yellow line, we're good.
Yep. Cool beans. This one doesn't say oil on it, but so the way this got broke was I had to change the alternator. The alternator's right down here. And the way you take the alternator off in this car is there's one video that says you can jack up the engine and get the alternator underneath this hose and between there, but there's not much room there. And then the other ones say that you can take off the fans and says you have to disconnect the hoses. Well, I did it by taking off the fan, but then when I was pulling the fan up and out of the way, I hit this and broke it off. So basically you take this off, remove your dipstick, cover your dipstick hole, unscrew this because you got to get this out of the way. Take off that, lift this up, unplug that. This is just in with rubber grommets once you unscrew that one. Then you got to remove this little push tab. You do not have to take this off, but you do have to unscrew every single one of these right here. Every single one of these, you got to unscrew them. There's one there. There's one here. I think there's 5 or 6 altogether. You do not have to unplug this, but you got to get this relay out of the way, so you got to unscrew that one. And then you got to pop all these out. And when you're pulling the fan up, you've got to unplug your fan motors from the wiring harness. There's one there and there's one down there. And you got to unplug all, well, you don't unplug this, you just pull this out. You can just snap it back in when you're done. But you get all these wire things off and out of the way toward the engine. Again, take off your dipstick, otherwise you'll break it off and have to do what we just did. But then when you're pulling up your fan, when you're pulling it up, there are 4 catches. There's one down here, there's one on the bottom, there's one over here, and there's one on the bottom. The way I did it, I did not take the hoses off. You can see where I moved that tab past my hose right here where it's brown, and that way I didn't have to drain my radiator fluid. But you end up pulling the fan straight up. When you pull it up, there's a right angle tab over here, which is insane because it's got just enough room to come past the clip that it goes in. And when you pull it up, you work this part out and away from the radiator. Once you do that, it comes out this direction. You lift this side up, this side over here stays down, and you can pull it out. But again, if you don't move this out of the way, it'll break off like it did on me. Then to get the alternator off, you should have already by now disconnected the negative terminal. I just disconnected the negative one. This one, I left this one actually on because once the battery's disconnected, this is what goes to the battery. Once that's disconnected, there's no current, there's no circuit completed by the battery, because you have to pull back this red tab right here. Then you have to push on that black tab to unplug this, and then you got to unscrew your positive from your alternator right there. And once you do that, then there are 2 bolts right here. And again, once this fan's out of the way, you can get these 2 bolts. You got to take the serpentine belt off. Over here by the tire, you got to take the serpentine belt off. And then there's another bolt on the alternator. You can't see it, but it's way down here, so my finger's actually touching it, and it goes in like this. So you got 2 bolts that go in like this on the alternator, and one farther down that goes in perpendicular to those 2. And then you pull the alternator through this hole that you created by removing the fan between this catalytic converter and the radiator. And be careful not to scratch the radiator when you're pulling it out, and also be very careful not to scratch the radiator when you're pulling this fan out. But I found that's the easiest, so good luck with that.